You don't.
All right, let's welcome now criminal defense attorney John Day. John, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. And I know that you have also served in your career as a deputy district attorney. So first, I'd like you to weigh in on the demeanor of the prosecution during this rebuttal closing.
Hi, thanks for having me. So yes, this prosecutor's demeanor, very matter of fact, addressing the jury, raising the issues that we know when the jurors start deliberations, they're going to want to start looking at. They always start with motive, in my experience. And in this case, the prosecution has certainly laid that out, put these puzzle pieces together. And then also focusing on the digital trail. We used to call it a paper trail, but the claim by the prosecution is that the digital trail does not lie the same way that video doesn't lie. And you've got to believe what you see with your own eyes. Things like don't forget shell casings, things like that. So prosecutors laying it out, on the rebuttal with motive and the clear evidence from the digital trail, and he's doing an effective job.
And I like the way he did it in terms of saying coincidences, another coincidence, because when you think of it like that, it adds up to, boy, that's an awful lot to have to believe could have happened that way or that it was a coincidence. I want to listen together, though, because I want to get your opinion about whether or not this really becomes a case of the jury choosing to believe either the defendant, Karina Cooper, or the co-defendant who stands trial next month, because I want to listen to a little bit of how he acted and sounded in his interrogation video that we know the jury has heard.
So we were all, everybody was friends, whatever, well then, she watched my kids a couple times when I was in a pinch. Well then, how small towns talk,
Exactly.
Houston's kids are over at Karina's, he's nailing her,
Yeah.
And then, and I guess that's probably where Ryan probably got upset,
you kind of, again, keep in mind, I don't know you. I've known you for, 10 minutes now?
Yeah.
But you kind of got a reputation where you're pretty successful with the ladies, right?
I won.
Better luck than some. Not as bad as others.
Years ago.
Years ago.
It's bad to say, but I'm young with 2 kids.
I don't know, John, watching that interrogation video, I start to wonder if he's trying too hard to be sincere and joke, and is that going to come across potentially to a jury as, not sure we believe his story?
Right. Is it trying too hard? Everybody on that jury has experience of talking to someone who they think is lying to them in their regular, everyday, personal lives. And they're watching this person make a statement to law enforcement. And is he being too glib? Is he being too happy? Is he exhibiting the right or an appropriate amount of seriousness given what's going on? So each juror is going to reach back into their own experiences and think, boy, when I've talked to someone and I think they're lying to me, how do they come across? And does this fit that pattern?
And that's what they do. They look back at their experience. So what do you think of the fact that she was charged with first-degree murder, but we know the jury is considering lessers? So for Karina Cooper, they are considering first-degree murder, second-degree murder, involuntary manslaughter. I think it was smart for the prosecution to lay out all 3 of those because it really gives the jury some options if they choose to believe what Karina told them on the stand.
Right. If they choose to believe it. They saw her testimony. They were able to judge her demeanor. They were able to judge whether she was essentially kind of a victim in this case. She was responsible for it. How culpable is she? But, at the end of the day, they've watched her testify. They've watched her, they've looked her in the eyes. They've watched her answer questions. And they're able to make the determination based on their own personal experiences. Is this person covering for herself? Is she telling the truth? Is she dissembling? And so having the step down from first degree certainly gives them options. But at the end of the day and in the final analysis, they're going to have to decide, was she telling the truth when she looked at us and spoke?
That's right. 52 minutes. That's how long the jury has been deliberating. John, stand by if you would. Before we head to break, we have an update on another case happening out of Georgia, where a teenager faces double murder charges for allegedly killing her mother and her stepfather. Police believe that 17-year-old Sarah Grace Patrick shot and killed the couple in their own home back in February. Patrick turned herself in on Tuesday, almost 5 months after she called 911 to report the killings. The bodies of James and Kristen Brock were found by the couple's 5-year-old daughter, who is Patrick's younger sister. A motive remains unclear, although there's no evidence of forced entry. The teenage suspect made a few cryptic posts on her TikTok account in the months following the killings. And now, a relative of the stepfather, Kristen Dauda, has shared exclusive video of the girl delivering a tearful eulogy at the funeral on Facebook, which apparently made this relative begin to suspect that she was involved in the murders.
I just wanted to say goodbye to my mama and Jamie since we never got the chance to. I was so used to you guys always being here to the point that I never once thought to imagine y'all not being here. I didn't have a single clue how much I needed y'all until now. For James, thank you for all the life lessons you taught me and for being the best bonus dad ever. Your heart will finally be healed in heaven and neither of y'all will be in any pain anymore.
Of course, we will continue to follow this case and bring you updates as we get them. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this quick break.
She's there.
Still with us, criminal defense attorney John Day. John, how important is a narrative when you're crafting your closing argument? And here's why I ask. He touched on it during this rebuttal. He said the plan was for Houston to get out as quickly as possible after he committed the murder, and her plan was to get the shell casings, and that's why she turned on her flashlight to look. Her job, because this was, I think, one of the most compelling pieces of evidence, was in a Snapchat from him to her saying, remember those shell casings. That type of narrative, I think, draws the jury in. And then we're back to a lot of the evidence and the little pieces of that. That part of the narrative really spoke to me.
Right. If you're listening to this and you realize that the testimony includes evidence of someone saying, don't forget the shell casings, there are very few times that that's going to apply to someone's daily life unless, as in this case, the allegation is murder. That's not something that you have as a part of your normal text communication on any level. So prosecutors done a really good job of putting those pieces together, giving the jury a checklist so that when they go back and start deliberating, they can look down and say, you know what, he's explained all these bits and pieces together, the puzzle pieces are fitting together, and he's using this story in a very calm and compelling way to tell us as jurors what to believe. He's triangulating the jurors in a way that he's backing the defense into a corner. And he's, of course, gets the last word. He's the prosecutor. The prosecutors have the burden of proof, so they go last. But the juror is going to come away with enough information, at least in the minds of the prosecutor, to knock away the foundation of the defense.
And I know we never know what a jury's going to do, but with those lessers, I would expect there's going to be a guilty verdict on one of those lessers. Tell me what you think, and what about this fact that the defense has argued, which is she wouldn't do this with her children in the home?
Yeah, the defense's point is exactly, she wouldn't do it with her kids in the home, but then you have to buy that someone in that position wouldn't have the capacity to even do it in the first place. So if the jury is going to buy the defense's argument that there's no way that she would do it with her kids there, you also have to ignore the fact that of all the digital evidence that points to the relationship between them, points to the time, the planning, and then, as you said, you get back to that text that says, don't forget the shell casings. I mean, there's never been a time when anyone's ever texted that where it really hasn't involved something pretty dark and disturbing.
Yeah, dark and disturbing. Great description of it. Stand by if you would, please. We do need to squeeze in a break. The jury has now been deliberating an hour and 20 minutes. And again, if there's a verdict, if there are notes, if anything happens in the courtroom, of course, we're going to let you know that. In the meantime, we want to show you every minute. So we've paused the state's rebuttal. When we come back, we'll bring you more of that. Still with us, criminal defense attorney John Day. John, what an amazing way to wrap it up, to say, was she asking the defendant, they did, was he sleeping when he was shot? And she says, yes. Well, how would she know that? And then concluding and saying, listen, by her own statements and by science, she did this. What are your final thoughts?
Final thoughts are, when do jurors make up their minds? Is closing argument something that supports the people who are leaning in favor of the prosecution's view? Does it shake loose anyone who might be on the fence? Talking to jurors after trial, a lot of them say they knew going into closing what they wanted to do. It was hearing it from the prosecutor's mouth, for example, that really closed the deal for them when they finally understood all the pieces are coming together. So you always wonder when they made their decision. This was a very compelling closing rebuttal and gave a lot of information to jurors who backed them up if they were favoring the prosecution and maybe shaking loose anyone who was wavering.
Completely agree with you. And the way he delivered the very end of that, I thought, to your point, this will do it. For those who think, maybe, maybe not, I think they might then side with the prosecution. Of course, we don't know what they're going to decide. We know they've been deliberating now for an hour and 30 minutes. They've got those jury instructions. John Day, thank you so much for joining us today. Appreciate all your expertise. Coming up next, Michael Ayala is joining me as we switch gears to Florida, where Donna Adelson was back in court today ahead of the murder trial. You don't want to miss that. We'll be right back on Court TV Live.